in the far corner of the galaxy, deep inside the glowing city of Zetherian, an unusual sound echoed across the stars. It was not the sound of weapons or ships, it was the cry of a newborn. But this was no ordinary baby. This was the child of Queen Seraphina, the ruler of the alien race called the Varelians. The baby's cry wasn't soft. It shook the walls of the palace. Glass cracked. Soldiers covered their ears. Even machines failed to work. Scientists rushed to the royal chamber, but none of them could explain it. Queen Seraphina stood near her child's cradle. Her silver eyes, usually calm and strong, now filled with fear. She tried holding the baby. She sang ancient songs, even called the royal healers, but nothing worked. The child kept crying, louder and louder, as if something inside him was breaking. Outside the palace, the cry traveled through the skies. Birds fell from the air. Cues bent like they were being pushed by a storm. Even starships floating near Zetherian lost control for a few seconds. "What is wrong with him?" Queen whispered, her voice trembling. One of the alien doctors, covered in glowing blue robes, bowed and spoke. "My queen, we don't know. The baby is healthy, but this cry is not normal. It carries energy, power." Seraphina stared at her child. His eyes were bright green, and a strange pattern glowed on his chest. No one in her kingdom had such a mark. The queen turned to her council. "We must find help. Somewhere in the universe, someone can understand this child." "But who?" asked General Karn, her most loyal warrior. "No one has seen a baby like this. It's not even in ancient times." The queen looked out the palace window, where stars blinked in the black sky. "Send a signal, a message of peace. Ask all planets, all species, even the humans." Everyone in the room froze. "The humans," the general said in shock. "We were at war with them only 10 years ago." "No," Seraphina said, "but they are strange creatures, brave, curious. Maybe, just maybe, one of them can help my son." Far across the galaxy, on a dusty base on Earth's moon, a lone human soldier sat cleaning his old weapon. His name was Jason Ward. He was a war hero, but after the war with the Varelians, he chose to live in silence. He avoided people. He avoided memories. Suddenly, a blue light blinked on his old comms device. Jason leaned forward. A signal was coming through an alien frequency. He pressed play. It was the voice of Queen Seraphina. "This is a message to any being who can help. My child, my only child, is in pain. His cry shakes the stars. If you can understand life, emotion, or energy, come. Help us, I beg you." Jason stared at the screen. His heart beat faster. He hadn't heard that voice in years. During the war, he had met Seraphina once. She had saved his life when he was trapped behind enemy lines. She had spared him, even when others wanted him dead. He stood up slowly. "A baby who cries like that. There's more to this." Jason packed his gear. He put on his old space suit, and for the first time in many years, he activated his small ship. Back on Zetherian, the baby cried again, this time louder than ever. The ground shook. A fountain cracked in the palace garden. Birds flew away in panic. The queen held her son tightly and whispered, "Please, someone hear us." High above the planet, a small human ship broke through the clouds. Jason Ward had arrived. Jason Ward stood at the edge of the landing bay. The alien city of Zetherian was nothing like Earth. The buildings floated in the air. Light moved like water. Strange creatures watched from balconies, their glowing eyes filled with fear. Jason stepped out of his small ship, wearing his dusty armor. He had come alone. No weapons, no army, only a heart full of questions and the voice of the alien queen echoing in his mind. Guards pointed their energy spears at him. But Queen Seraphina raised her hand. "Let him pass," she said softly. Jason looked into her silver eyes. They hadn't changed in 10 years. "You came," she whispered. "I heard the cry," Jason said. "It wasn't just sound. It was something else, like it was calling." To me, the Queen nodded. "My son, he doesn't stop crying. His pain is louder than any weapon." She led Jason into the royal chamber. The walls were covered in living vines that pulsed with light. In the center of the room, inside a floating cradle, was the baby. His small body shook with every cry. His green eyes glowed like stars, and a strange symbol blinked on his chest. Jason stepped closer. The baby stopped crying. The room fell silent. Everyone stared in shock. The baby blinked and looked directly at Jason. He reached out, tiny fingers stretching. The Queen gasped. He's never done that before." Jason picked him up carefully. The child didn't cry. He cooed a soft, warm sound. For the first time since his birth, the palace felt peace. The alien scientists rushed forward. "Impossible. The energy levels are stabilizing." Jason looked down at the child in his arms. "He's calm." The Queen stepped closer. "I don't understand." "No one, not even me, could comfort him." Jason gently moved the baby's robe. The glowing mark on the child's chest was clearer now. A small spiral with a dot in the center. Jason's eyes widened. "I've seen this before," he whispered. "My brother had this tattoo, right here." He pointed to his own chest. Seraphina froze. "Your brother?" Jason nodded. "He died during the last war. Went missing on a rescue mission. We never found his body." The Queen turned pale. She sat down, her hands shaking. "No, this cannot be." Jason looked at her sharply. "What are you not telling me?" She stared at the baby. 10 years ago, during the war, I was badly injured. I crash-landed on a strange planet, Earth. A man found me. He hid me, healed me. He was kind, brave. We were together for a short time." Jason's heart sank. "That was my brother, wasn't it?" Seraphina nodded slowly. "Yes, I didn't know he had a brother. I didn't even know I was with child until I returned to Cytherian. I kept it secret. The council would never accept a half-human heir." Jason looked down at the baby, who was now sleeping peacefully in his arms. "Then he's my blood, my nephew." The Queen wiped her eyes. "I called out to the stars for help. I never thought the stars would answer by sending you." Suddenly, the palace lights flickered. Alert rang through the walls. Guards rushed in. "My Queen," one shouted. "There's unrest in the lower city. People are afraid. They say the child is cursed, that he's too powerful. Some want him removed." Seraphina stood tall. "They will not touch my son." Jason handed the baby back gently. "Then let's show them he's more than a cry." Outside the palace, a large crowd had gathered. Alien citizens held signs and shouted. Fear was in their voices. Some believed the child would destroy their world. The Queen stepped out onto the balcony. Jason stood beside her. "This child is not a threat," Seraphina said, her voice clear. "He is a symbol of peace, some two worlds coming together." The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Okay. Others still looked unsure. Jason stepped forward. "I fought in the war. I saw hate. I lost my brother. But this child, he carries something stronger than any weapon. He carries both our blood. If you harm him, you kill a bridge between two worlds." For a moment, the crowd was silent. Then a single alien stepped forward and bowed. "If the Queen trusts him, we will too." Peace returned for now, but deep in the shadows of the royal court, a pair of jealous eyes watched. A voice whispered, "Half-human blood will never rule us." The baby lay quietly in his cradle, for the first time since his birth. The room, once filled with constant cries and shaking energy, was now calm. The alien palace of Cytherian breathed in peace if only for a short while. Jason Ward sat beside the cradle, watching the child sleep. His armor was dusty, and his eyes looked tired, but his heart was full of wonder. He had never held a baby before. Now he was caring for a baby who was half alien and half human. His brother's son. The queen, Seraphina, stood by the glowing window. Her hands were folded tightly. She looked at Jason, her voice soft. I still don't know why he only stops crying when you're near. Jason looked down. I don't either. But I feel something when I'm with him, like we're connected. The scientists entered with their scanning tools. They moved slowly, not to wake the child. One of them, Dr. Viro, spoke. We scanned the child's blood again. The results are unusual. Jason raised an eyebrow. Unusual how? The doctor showed a glowing screen. It doesn't just have human DNA. He has something else, something ancient, something we've never seen before. Seraphina stepped closer. What do you mean? Dr. Viro hesitated. There is a second pattern in his genes. It matches old records from the temple of the first ones. Jason stood up. What are the first ones? The queen's face turned pale. The first ones were an ancient species, older than any living race. They vanished long ago. But their power was great. Some say they could bend time, control minds. Jason looked at the child. You think he has their blood? The doctor nodded. It is only a small trace. It is there. The child is not just half human. He is something more. Suddenly, the baby stirred. His eyes opened and they glowed brighter than before. A wave of soft energy moved through the room. The scanners sparked. One of the machines caught fire. Everyone froze. Then, silence again. Jason gently picked up the baby. It's okay, little guy. You're safe. Queen stepped closer. We must go to the temple. We need answers. Jason looked at her. You mean leave the palace? Yes, she said. There are hidden scrolls in the temple of the first ones. If this child carries their blood, their writings may explain what he is or what he will become. But not everyone wanted answers. Far beneath the palace, General DeRose, the queen's advisors, spoke to a group of shadowed figures. His eyes burned with anger. A half-human heir, he growled. This is an insult to our people, and now they say the child has ancient blood. That makes him dangerous. One of the figures hissed. What will you do? Thoros narrowed his eyes. What must be done? We must remove him before the queen grows weak, before she lets that human decide our future. Okay. Back in the palace, Jason prepared for the journey to the temple. He packed his gear and strapped a protective harness around the baby. You sure this temple is safe? He asked. The queen nodded. It is old, yes, but protected. No one has entered it in years. As they flew in a small hovercraft across the glowing skies, Jason looked down at a strange world. Alien trees shimmered with light. Rivers floated in the air like ribbons. The baby cooed softly in Jason's arms. You're different, Jason whispered to the child. But maybe that's what this galaxy needs. They landed near a mountain covered in crystal vines. The entrance to the temple was hidden behind a waterfall that flowed upwards. Seraphina touched the stone wall, and a secret door opened. Inside, the air was cold and still. Old carvings lined the walls. Symbols glowed faintly under their feet. At the center of the temple was a round chamber. In it stood a tall crystal mirror, and behind it, stone scrolls stacked like forgotten books. Jason stepped forward. As he did, the mirror lit up hand showed an image of the baby. Not as he was, but as an older boy, standing strong with armies behind him. The queen gasped. The prophecy. Jason turned. What prophecy? She walked to one of the scrolls and read aloud. A child born of two worlds shall rise with a cry that shakes the stars. He shall lead not by war, but by peace, and unite what has long been broken. Jason looked at the baby. That's him. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed outside the temple. Dust fell from the ceiling. Seraphina grabbed Jason's arm. We've been followed. Jason pulled out his old blaster. Get behind me. From the shadows, General Thoros appeared with soldiers. That child, he growled, will never sit on our throne. Smoke filled the entrance of the ancient temple. The sound of boots echoed through the stone floor as General Thoros stepped forward. His cold eyes locked on the baby in Jason's arms. Jason held the child tighter. You're not getting near him. Thoros raised a blaster. He is a danger to our kind. That child is not pure. And you, human you, don't belong here. Queen Seraphina stood between them. This child is my son. You will not harm him. Thoros growled. He carries human blood. The council will never accept him. He will break our empire. Jason stepped beside the queen. Maybe your empire needs to break so it can heal. Suddenly, one of Thoros' soldiers shouted, the baby. He's glowing again. Everyone turned. Akai's body pulsed with soft green light. The glowing mark on his chest became brighter. The light spread across the walls, touching the carvings on the stones. The temple began to hum. What is this? Thoros stepped back, unsure. The queen looked around in awe. The temple is reacting. To him, Jason held the baby higher. He's not destroying this place. He's waking it up. The energy moved toward the large crystal mirror at the center of the room. It flickered on, showed a new vision. In it, the baby stood tall as a grown ruler, with both humans and aliens standing beside him in peace. The queen whispered, "This is the future the prophecy spoke of." Jason looked at Thoros. "You're afraid, not of the child, but of change." Thoros roared in anger and fired his blaster. Jason spun and jumped behind a stone pillar, shielding the baby. The queen called her royal guards, who arrived just in time. A battle broke out inside the sacred temple. Jason handed the baby to the queen. "Take him. Protect him." He ran forward, dodging blaster fire. Using only his fists and speed, Jason disarmed two soldiers. One aimed at the queen, but the baby let out a sudden cry. The sound wasn't loud, but it was powerful. Everything froze. The soldiers dropped their weapons. Thoros fell to his knees, holding his head. Visions filled their minds, images of war, pain, and then peace. They saw families from different species living together, laughing. Hey, they saw cities without borders. When the cry ended, silence returned. The glow faded. Thoros gasped for breath. What? What did he do? The queen stepped forward. He showed you a world you're too afraid to accept. Jason added, he's not just part of your race. He's part of mine too. And maybe that's what makes him special. Thoros looked broken. His soldiers lowered their heads and dropped their weapons. One of them whispered, "I saw my brother again. I haven't seen his face in years." Another said, "I felt peace, real peace." Duh. Queen held her son close. His cry isn't a weapon, it's a message, one this galaxy must hear. Later that night, in the royal palace, the council gathered. Many looked angry. Some looked curious. Jason stood in the middle, with the queen and her baby beside him. An elder spoke. "Why should we accept a child that is not fully one of us?" The queen replied calmly, "Because he is more than us. He is the bridge we need." Jason added, "He carries the strength of two worlds. My brother, a human, gave his life to protect her. That baby is what came from love, not war." Two baby looked around the council room. The lights dimmed. The mark on his chest glowed again, gently this time. Everyone in the room felt something strange, warmth, hope. Tom, the elder who first spoke, looked down. Perhaps it is time for something new. But not all were convinced. In the shadows of the great hall, other enemies watched. Jealous nobles, secret rebels, those who believed bloodlines must stay pure. One whispered, "The human child will never wear the crown, even if we have to destroy it with him." As peace returned to the palace floor, now Jason stood at a balcony, staring at the stars. The queen joined him. "Do you regret coming here?" He shook his head. "No, I didn't come here to be a soldier again, but now I'm something else." She smiled softly. "Your family now?" Jason looked at the baby, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Yeah," he said, "and family protects its own." Night fell on Cytherian. The palace stood quiet under a sky full of stars. All seemed peaceful, but in the shadows, danger was moving. Inside the nursery, Queen Seraphina rocked her baby slowly. The child had stopped glowing for now. He smiled in her arms, his small fingers reaching for her hair. Jason stood near the window, watching the city lights below. "He's stronger than he looks," he said, "just like his mother." Seraphina smiled, and his uncle. Cool. Suddenly, Jason's old soldier instincts kicked in. He turned his head sharply. "Something's wrong." Just then, the palace lights went out. Darkness swallowed the halls. An alarm started to ring, but was quickly silenced. The queen stood up, her voice shaking. "This is no power failure." Jason grabbed a blaster from the wall. "Stay behind me. We're not safe." Outside the nursery, a group of masked soldiers moved silently through the palace. Their armor was black, their weapons set to kill. Leading them was General Theros, back from exile. He whispered to his team, "Take the child, kill the human. The queen resists, end her too." Jason opened the nursery door and saw shadows moving down the hallway. "They're here." Seraphina clutched the baby tightly. "Where can we go?" "There's a hidden tunnel," Jason said. "Take the baby. I'll hold him off." The queen shook her head. "No, we stay together." Jason didn't argue. He led them out through a secret door behind the nursery wall. The tunnel was dark and narrow, lit only by glowing stones. Back in the main hallway, Tharos found the nursery empty. He cursed. "Find him. Now." In the tunnel, Jason and Seraphina moved fast. The baby began to cry softly, sensing the fear around him. Jason whispered, "You're okay, little guy. Just stay with us." Suddenly, a blast hit the wall beside them. Soldiers had found the tunnel. Jason turned and fired his blaster. "Go, I'll catch up." Seraphina ran with the child in her arms. Behind her, the tunnel shook with explosions. Jason fought hard, taking down 3 enemies, but more kept coming. One soldier shot at Jason from behind. Leah blast hit his shoulder. He fell, groaning in pain, but still got up. He limped down the tunnel, blood dripping, heart racing. Seraphina reached the end of the tunnel and entered a hidden chamber, the old war bunker of her ancestors. She sealed the door behind her and placed the baby gently in a protective cradle. Jason arrived seconds later, his arm bleeding. He smiled weakly, still alive. The queen rushed to him. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," Jason said, then pointed at the walls. "We can defend this room. It's solid." The door began to shake. The enemy was trying to break in. Seraphina held the baby close. "He's crying again," but this cry was different. It was soft, then deeper. The room began to glow. The ancient markings on the bunker walls lit up, reacting to the baby's energy. Jason looked around. "What's happening?" The queen gasped. "He's calling for help." Outside the palace, across the city, people suddenly woke from sleep. They heard something, a feeling in their minds. Not words, but emotions. Fear, pain, hope. One citizen whispered, "The child is in danger." Alien guards, civilians, and even lower palace staff dropped what they were doing and began running toward the Queen's tower, back in the bunker. Thoros finally blasted the door open. He stepped in with 2 soldiers. "It ends now," he said. Jason raised his weapon. "Not today." But before anyone could shoot, the room exploded with green light. The baby floated into the air, his eyes wide open, his cry rising. Daros dropped his weapon. His soldiers froze. Visions poured into their minds, memories from their own past. Lost family, kind moments, childhood laughter. Then they saw the child as a future king. Kind, just, wise. Thoros screamed, "No, he's tricking us." But even his heart felt the truth. He fell to his knees. What have I done?" Jason rushed forward and grabbed his weapon. "It's over." Palace guards arrived and arrested Thoros and his men. The Queen stood tall, holding her son, who now slept peacefully once again. Jason looked at her. That wasn't just a cry. That was a voice. He spoke without words. The Queen nodded. The people heard him outside the palace. Crowds had gathered, holding lights high in the sky. They sang an old Varelian song of unity, one that hadn't been sung in centuries. That night, a new legend was born. The next morning, sunlight touched the highest towers of Zetherian. The city felt different, like something big had changed overnight. The people, once divided by fear, now stood together in hope. Inside the palace, Queen Seraphina sat quietly in the Hall of Stars. Her child, now resting peacefully, was held in her arms. Jason stood beside her, his wounded shoulder wrapped with bandages. They were waiting for someone. The temple keepers arrived, 3 ancient Varelian monks dressed in robes that shimmered like starlight. One of them, Elder Maureen, stepped forward with a scroll sealed in crystal. He bowed. "Your Majesty, we have studied the signs. The prophecy has begun." Jason looked at the Queen. "You never told me how this prophecy really started." Seraphina took a deep breath. "I didn't believe it before, but now I must." Elder Maureen opened the scroll. The room filled with a soft blue light as the ancient words floated in the air. He read slowly, "From the blood of 2 worlds, a child shall rise. His cry will shake the stars. His tears will cleanse the past. His heart will unite what war has broken." Jason stared at the glowing words. "That's him, your son." "No," Seraphina said softly. "Our son. He is of your world and mine." Elder Maureen nodded. "This prophecy was written over 10,000 years ago. We didn't know when it would happen or who the child would be." Jason stepped closer to the child. "But how can he do all this? He's just a baby." The elder smiled. "He doesn't have to do it alone. That's why you're here." Silently, the palace shook. A guard ran in. "The rebel fleet. They're approaching the city." Jason turned sharply. "I thought they gave up after the last attack." The Queen stood. Some still feared the child. "They want the throne for themselves." Elder Maureen said, "We must go to the great crystal chamber. It is the only place where the prophecy can fully awaken." Jason asked, "What happens in that chamber?" The elder replied, "There, the child will be tested. If he is the true one, the crystal will respond. If not," he stopped. Seraphina held her child tighter. "We'll take the risk." The group moved quickly through the palace's secret paths. Outside, enemy ships circled in the sky. Keva, the people of Zetherian, stood strong. Many had now chosen to protect the child instead of fear him. Deep beneath the palace, hidden behind ancient stone doors, lay the great crystal chamber. In the center stood a tall, glowing crystal tower, pulsed softly like a sleeping heart. Jason entered first, his hand on his blaster. "Looks clear," Elder Maureen pointed to the crystal. Place the child there. Let the crystal see him. Seraphina gently laid her baby in the center of the chamber. The moment his body touched the platform, the crystal lit up. First blue, then green, then gold. The light wrapped around the baby like soft ribbons. The symbol on his chest glowed brighter than ever before. The entire chamber filled with music, not from any instrument, but from energy, from light itself. Jason whispered, "What's happening?" The elder spoke, awestruck. "The crystal accepts him." Suddenly, visions filled the room. Everyone saw the same thing: aliens, cities burning, humans fighting aliens, planets in ruin. But then, hands reaching out, soldiers dropping weapons, children of every race laughing together. Then, the baby appeared as a grown man, wearing a robe of stars. He stood in peace between thousands of species, all united. The visions faded. The light grew calm. Jason wiped his eyes. "It's him. There's no doubt." Seraphina smiled through her tears. "He will be a leader of peace." But before they could celebrate, a loud explosion shook the walls. A second guard ran in. "The rebels have breached the palace gates." Jason grabbed his weapon. "Hey, we need to protect this chamber." Elder Marine shook his head. "No, this child must be seen. The people must know the prophecy is real." Jason nodded. "Let's show them." Minutes later, the royal balcony was filled with guards, monks, and loyal citizens. Jason and Seraphina stepped forward with the baby. The sky above was dark with enemy ships, but when the child looked up, his eyes glowed. He cried again, one single, pure sound. The enemy ships froze in midair. Inside each pilot's mind, the vision returned: a galaxy at peace, a future without war. Many of them dropped their weapons. Some even turned their ships away. Below, the people of Cytheria began to chant, "Two bloods, one future, two bloods, one king." Jason stood beside the queen. "The prophecy has begun, but this is just the start." Seraphina looked at him and smiled. "Then, stay with us. Help him become who he's meant to be." Jason placed a hand on the child's chest. "I promise, I'll protect him with everything I have." The skies above Cytherian turned dark. Enemy warships circled the capital like vultures waiting to strike. The rebel leaders, angry and afraid, had one last goal: destroy the child who carried both human and alien blood inside the palace. Queen Seraphina stood with her baby in her arms. Her eyes were calm, but her heart was racing. Jason stood next to her, checking his blaster one last time. "The final attack is coming," Jason said. "They won't stop this time." Seraphina nodded. "Then we won't run." The baby looked up at both of them. His glowing green eyes were calm. He didn't cry, simply watched as if he knew everything was about to change. Down below, thousands of people filled the city streets. They had come not to fight, but to stand in front of the palace, shoulder to shoulder, unarmed, unafraid. Jason looked through the balcony window. "They're ready. The people believe in him." The queen smiled faintly. "He gave them something no ruler ever has: hope." Suddenly, the palace shook. The rebel fleet began to fire. Explosions echoed across the sky. Protective shields around the city flickered. A soldier ran into the throne room. "My queen, we can't hold them much longer. The rebels are landing ground forces." Jason turned to Seraphina. "We need to make a choice: fight back or let him speak." Seraphina looked down at her son. "He is the voice of a new future. Let him be heard." The queen and Jason walked together to the palace rooftop. Behind them, guards formed a protective circle. The baby was placed gently on a raised platform surrounded by crystal pillars. Jason whispered to the child, "This is your moment. The Baby blinked once, then looked toward the sky. He opened his mouth and cried, but this time, the cry wasn't loud, it wasn't painful, it was soft and full of emotion. The sound spread through the air like light through water. It reached the rebel ships, the soldiers on the ground, the angry leaders hiding in command rooms, and it didn't just reach their ears. It reached their hearts. Visions flowed again. The soldiers saw their families, sons, daughters, old friends. They had lost to war. They felt peace, unity, forgiveness topped on the battlefield. Soldiers from both sides dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees, crying. Others hugged strangers. They were moments away from killing Dot in the skies. Pilots powered down their weapons and hovered silently. The rebel leader, General Rowe, stood frozen in his command ship. He whispered, "What is this feeling?" And the voice of his own child echoed in his mind. "Come home, father." Rowe dropped his weapon. We were wrong. Back at the palace, the baby's cry ended. Kayla's followed, but it was not empty. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm. Peaceful, healing. Jason looked around in awe. He did it. The queen picked up her child, tears in her eyes. He didn't need to fight. He just needed to be heard. Within hours, the rebel army surrendered. No more blood was shed. The leaders were brought before the queen, but instead of punishment, she offered something no one expected. Not revenge, she said, but unity. The rebel soldiers, now ashamed of their actions, bowed before the child. We were blind, but he showed us light. Days later, in the great ceremony hall, the people of Cytherian and human ambassadors gathered together. The child named Kale was crowned the first child of peace, not a king. Not yet, but a symbol of what the galaxy could become. Jason stood at the edge of the platform, dressed in royal armor, gifted by the queen. He didn't smile much, but his eyes were full of pride. Seraphina stood beside him. He has a long road ahead. Jason nodded, but he won't walk it alone. As music filled the hall, people cheered, not just for a baby, but for what he represented. The end of old hate, and the beginning of a new age. That night, as stars twinkled over the peaceful city, Jason held Kale one last time before placing him in his cradle. "You changed everything," Jason whispered, "and I'll be here every step of the way." Kale smiled in his sleep. Outside the palace, two flags waved together in the wind, one of Earth, one of Cytherian, and beneath them, a new future began.